With growers, it mixes perfectly. There's no clumps. It's a liquid product. You can put it in a hand sprayer. It's uniform. It's a wonderful way to do it.
Good afternoon. I'm Chris Kohl. I'm the sales manager here at GrowersMineral Solutions. Today we have a guest, Kevin Radke. Kevin was brought in with growers about 6 or 8 months ago to really expand our coverage area. And what I mean by that is traditionally growers has been used on commercial farms for the last 70 years. We've dabbled a little bit in landscaping, a little bit of greenhouse activity here, and a little bit of nurseries and other areas we've used growers in. But growers being the material it is, it's a 10-20-10 fertilizer with all the micronutrients. The manufacturing process of growers is what makes it unique in the industry. We start with clean raw materials, and during the manufacturing process, we use a chemical heating process that heats it up almost to boiling point. What the benefit of that does is it puts all the micronutrients in the 10-20-10 NPK in solution. And the benefit of solution is when you apply the first drop of our material, liquid material, it's the same consistency as the last drop you put on your field. So my guest today is Kevin Radke. Kevin started with growers about 6 or 8 months ago. We brought Kevin in because he has a special category that he excels in. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Kevin? Introduce yourself.
Again, I'm Kevin Radke. I'm very honored to be here today. A little thumbnail about my past. My grandfather came from Germany in the late 1800s and settled on Shaft Road in Cleveland. And throughout the generations, my father came along and we were part of the greenhouse capital of the world. So at the young age, I was fertilizing and growing tomatoes when I was just a very young person. So again, I have a lifetime of greenhouse experience with hydroponics and soil and many, many, many different crops. I've grown about 50 million plants in a greenhouse. So. Nice. And I'm very, very honored to be here and share some information with everyone today.
Well, we appreciate that. I think you once told me that you've actually were born in a greenhouse and have lived in it ever since. So it's good to know. With GrowersMineral, it's a liquid fertilizer, 10-20-10, with all the micronutrients in it. It's very, it's manufactured with raw materials that are medical grade. We have to do that because we are subsidized for animal nutrition. And also, the belief with growers for the last 70 years with our single product is that the plant doesn't need as much nutrient as everybody or the establishment maintains. Growers has realized that since pretty much day one when Doc Tegens did all the testing back in the early 30s and 40s and developed the company in 1955. With that said, I've always, been intrigued with the greenhouse industry and nursing industry just because it's special, and like we were talking a little bit before this, we had mentioned that, when we go out and talk to farmers, every farm is different. It could be the neighbor has, something a little bit different in his farm than the neighbor's farm. And obviously, as you go down south or up north, the actual soil conditions change. Now, in the greenhouse, my impression of a greenhouse is that they're all the same. You're in a house that reflects the sun, and you use water primarily in that application. And talking to you a little bit off camera here, that's not exactly the case, is it? So explain that to me. Then
that's not exactly the case. If I could encompass the wonderful world of outdoor agriculture with indoor agriculture, exactly what you're talking about, Chris. Every greenhouse, and I've been in over 150 different greenhouses, everyone has a different attitude. Everyone has a different level of growing quality. Everyone have a different water quality. And it doesn't matter if they're big or small. They're all just a little bit different, depending on the crops they grow, the time of year, the conditions to be directed by each grower. Each head grower is a chef. And each head grower can grow a plant just a little bit different than the guy next door to him. It could be the same exact plant with the same marigold, the same geranium, the same tomato, the same head of lettuce. There always can be little differences in each type of growing. So the individuality of each of that is a very wonderful crazy part of the greenhouse business.
Is that more of the head grower's philosophy or his care of those plants, or is it more of the inputs that they utilize? Or, water is a big issue in our industry just because of, people aren't aware of the TDS, the total dissolved solids in water. Water accumulate, rainwater is pretty clean and pure of TDSs, but as it seeps through the earth, it picks up minerals. And as it gets down to wells, rivers, or lakes, it's picking up minerals as well. So that intel makes water hard and makes it awful difficult to utilize in a growing atmosphere because of the extra solutions that are in water. So explain a little bit of the water issues that maybe a greenhouse would have.
The water issue is a great topic, and that could go on for hours and hours and hours. I've had foliar feeding in wonderful areas. They use well water. I've had foliar feeding with city water, but they've had to compensate for the pH level of each one of those. Again, each greenhouse has a different water type. They should have it tested exactly, make sure growers is going to be perfect with them, and the amount of growers especially. A young baby plant, you just want to start a test area of just a few percentages with growers because of your water. 1 to 2 to 3% is as much as you want to go with a very young plant. As long as the plant gets a little older, the first true leaves are starting to go on, maybe you can pick it up to 3 to 4%. But it all depends on the water in your system. And if it's pond water, that's fine. But if it's city water, there's a whole nother avenue you have to, with foliar feeding or tank feeding. It's a chemistry project that the grower himself, with his legal pad and his pencil, has to write down to make sure he gets it just right. GrowersMineral is an absolutely incredible product, and test plots are perfect for it, especially if you start out soft and then work up to it, and you'll be using tons of it.
So the plant can, in the younger stages, takes less. You would apply more as it gets matures? As it
gets older, correct. Okay. A young baby plant, I sow roughly 500 to 600 seeds a week. I never put more than 1 to 2% growers on each one of those plots, because I've learned in my system, more is not good.
Okay.
But the plants absolutely love 1 to 2%.
Okay.
They thrive.
Now, how often do you apply that?
Once a week.
Once a week.
Once
okay.
a week,
So
correct.
you see that once a week. Do you have stress points that you may apply it more often, or?
I just use that as my Kevin head grower legal pad
Benchmark.
Because my benchmark, and it could be different than anybody else's greenhouse because lighting could be different. That's a whole nother subject we can go on, lighting and humidity and all that. But the scientificness of this is wonderful to play up. Young plants love it, and older plants love it just a little more.
Now, it sounds like in that atmosphere, because you are using such little input or fertility, that you would really want to have the cleanest product possible that your input.
That's why GrowersMineral is such a hit with young plants. Again, it really, truly is above and beyond, and toxicity is gone. I mean, you can use it without gloves. You can use it in a little hand sprayer if you wanted to try a little test plot with young plants. But again, the 1 to 2% in my recommendation is a great way to test young plants with it.
Now, before you were exposed to growers, what did you utilize, or how did you apply fertility?
I did. That's a great question. I did 100 parts per million of just a basic seed starter fertilizer.
Okay, was it dry product or
dry product? Yeah, okay. I had to mix it, and then there was chemistry with that, and sometimes you get clumps. With growers, it mixes perfectly. There's no clumps. It's a liquid product. You can put it in a hand sprayer. It's uniform. It's a wonderful way to do it.
I could see that as being the biggest problem with the dry material, and then having to agitate that, get it into what we call suspension.
Correct.
Because what we found, because our product is in solution, you're going to get the consistency throughout, and it'll maintain that in solution. It's not going to drop out, so you never have to agitate, per se, GrowersMineral. But I could see if you have it in suspension where you constantly need to agitate that you're not going to get the consistency on that. You're going to see some inconsistencies in your output of your crops.
You're absolutely right, because everyone agitates a little bit differently too. You might have a new hired hand. Can you agitate my tank before? And he may not do it correctly, and you might have a big clump in there, and all of a sudden you got 300 parts per million in that section instead of 100 parts per million because it's not mixed well. That has happened.
Yeah, I can see that could really mislead
Correct.
what you're trying to accomplish
Your
in that
tank
greenhouse.
chemistry is not accurate. With growers, it is.
That's
because it's a liquid state.
It's a liquid. That's beautiful. Look.
It truly, truly is.
Okay. Do you see any other applications for growers outside of possibly the greenhouse application?
Oh,
I know that's a real specialty, and but nurseries or other areas where you could see growers being beneficial.
I have a good friend of mine. He's using 6 to 7% on cuttings right now. And again, these are cuttings for next year because it's already almost July already. But he's taking the cuttings. As the cutting goes in, he soaks the ground with 6 to 7% growers, and the plants are 20% root quality better in 3 weeks.
Now, does he put that in a soil medium of some?
It's a soil mix, but it's not soil as far as earth. It's a pro mix type with peat.
Okay, and that's just the starter.
It's just how he starts them in half-gallon or 1-gallon pots.
Okay.
And he'll transport those into a 1-gallon to 2-gallon for sales.
And then does he grow those out, or does he usually sell those? Or
it all depends on the market.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
If he sells them early, he loves it if he can turn quicker. So that's one big thing with growers. If you can get more of a turn in your greenhouse, you're making money. You're maximizing your profits if you give a healthier plant younger quicker. Because greenhouses, 365 days a year, have to produce. And they might be under glass. They might be in a barn with grow lights. They might have cannabis. If you can turn one extra crop, you're going to maximize your profits. And it's enormous. Because if you're doing plugs, I grew 800,000 plugs a year. If I could move a quarter of those quicker, that would be a huge, wonderful addition to my profits.
Now, what are some of the ways that a greenhouse can move product quicker? I mean, is a lot of it the growing process itself?
Correct.
I mean, can you shorten that, or is that lengthened, or how does that all work?
Usually a plug tray is about 4 to 6 weeks. If, let's say, you're growing a basic annual, begonias, petunias, and if you can get them like 1 to 2 inches and sell them at 1 to 2 inches stays, and you can turn the next crop quicker. If you can put just 3% growers or 2% growers on those plug trays before, and if you can get them a week quicker, you every day counts in a greenhouse.
Makes sense.
Because you have heat, you have overhead, you have all the things that go into a greenhouse that cost a lot of money.
Yeah, those expenses don't stop.
Those expenses don't stop. So if you can turn a little, maximize your profits, it's a very wonderful thing.
And it's a tough industry. Yeah, there's no question about it. I was talking to our district manager that runs a wonderful nursery down in Live Oak, Florida. And he was telling me his window, by July 4th, he pretty much shuts down. Doesn't have a lot of business through the summer. He continues to stay open because he sells other things than just, plants. He's got other hard goods that he sells. But he says he really doesn't make a lot of money in that summer 3 months. But then when the fall comes, he picks back up. And then obviously the spring. And they've got an extended season down in Florida. But he was saying how critical it is for him to care for his plants that he has. Because he's got to make those look great, and then when they go home with whoever purchases them, he wants to make sure they maintain that health. So it's real critical to have that base healthy plant when it leaves the shop or the nursery or the greenhouse, for that matter.
That is an incredible point, because of the basic greenhouse. I know Ohio very, very well. Florida, I do know, but not as well as Ohio. You have about 6 to 8 weeks to make a living. And if you can make your plants a little prettier, a little healthier, make your roots a little longer, that will put you above, because there's lots of competition in the greenhouse world.
That's what I've noticed in my travels, is there seems to be one on every corner.
Yes.
Guys they'll pop up for the spring for that 7 or 8 week window you said. So you're competing against, the garage guys, I like to call it.
Exactly.
I don't want to call them fly-by-nights, but guys that just pop up and work 8 to 10 weeks, and then they go away till the next spring or the next fall. So.
And if you can make your roots healthier and stronger when they're first planted, that will show in the second or third week, and your flowers will be a little stronger. I mean, that's huge for Mother's Day, obviously. I produced roughly 40,000 hanging baskets a year, and I had to sell 80% of those Mother's Day week.
Wow. So it's really an intense period.
Your hanging baskets better look beautiful in that, and if growers can help that with the blooms, with the roots, soil, and your customers will like them because they'll last a little longer at their house and all that wonderful thing.
So it's real critical on what you're used for fertility and
Very
the whole
much.
process to understand your water, because if you screw that up, you're really out for that year. I mean, you could lose the whole season pretty quickly.
That's why I've been a head grower for over 40 years, and again, I've grown many plants. But the use of GrowersMineral is an added plus. It's a win-win-win. It's non-toxic, it's earth-friendly, and your plants love it. You just have to learn how to use it in your greenhouse.
Yeah.
And once you get that science, you can calculate and you can maximize your profits.
Yeah, I see a lot of opportunities for grower in that industry just because of the specialty of it and the time constraints that you have and the need for a good, clean product in that atmosphere. So,
I totally agree. Because, again, you're intensely under a microscope in the greenhouse world.
okay, so you've mentioned that you've helped a few guys on the phone through some issues out there.
Yes.
I know we had a gentleman that was having a terrible tomato problem down in Ohio, and I think you helped a little bit with that, and that goes a long way. That's real important with our company and our customer base and our sales force is our network and the information that we share over this network. It's critical. I know you've spoken to guys all over the country, literally answering greenhouse things. Once they found out, hey, we've got a guy that specializes in greenhouse, understands the process. Tell us a little bit some of your interactions that you've had.
A lot of the calls I received were a lot of people that were somewhat intimidated by a greenhouse. And there's only a difference between soybeans, corn, and a greenhouse, and that there's a roof over your head. The farmer still has to grow the plants correctly and the timing. They're just in a little different soil than an outdoor plant. But greenhouse head growers, owners are always looking for a way to get ahead because it's a very tough market. All the magazines, all the commercials you see for the best fertilizer and all that stuff are wonderfully done advertising, but GrowersMineral is to the heart. There's no fluff. It's right to the point. It actually works. It's non-toxic, and it's a wonderful product. And I just want to let people know that call me up and just say, just try it religiously on a test plot and just do 2 to 3 percentages and just see how your plants. In 2 weeks, if you need a little more, raise your percentage. It's as simple as that. It really does, because most of the calls I got were a lot of people that were just intimidated about a greenhouse, and we're just simple folks, church-going folks like most. But we just got to make a living, and hopefully GrowersMineral can maximize the profits for that.
Yeah, I know a lot of my sales force are farmers, and the traditional farmer, the conventional farmer, and they were intimidated or are intimidated with the greenhouse just because they haven't been exposed to it and don't understand it. But like you explained to it, they're pretty much just a farmer.
They're just a farmer
just
in a house. Yeah.
Yes,
And again, the greenhouse transition in the last decade has changed a lot with cannabis. Again, I've been to places that are warehouses with now no windows at all. Lighting is used, and I've seen the cannabis plants growing inside of a warehouse. So keep opportunities open for maybe a place that isn't exactly a greenhouse. I'm just sharing, there's a lot of avenues right now. Again, Ohio just got legalized. Michigan has been legalized for a while now. It doesn't have to look like a greenhouse to knock on someone's door.
I was actually reading an article today. You talk about cannabis, and it's thriving in Michigan. They actually outproduced California last year in the marijuana production, which I thought was curious because the population is about 10 times higher in California than it is in Michigan. But so it is a thriving business. I know one thing in the cannabis industry, they really are focused on testing product for heavy metals. We did a presentation over at that Cleveland School of Cannabis, and I thought that was interesting to find that out, that they really test everything. They just don't spot test. They test everything that's being sold. And I thought that's amazing that they really focus on testing for heavy metals in the cannabis industry, and it seems to go forgotten in the food industry. They only spot test a few things in the food industry, and I've always had that concern that if your input is toxic, that the food source is going to become toxic, and that's always been a concern with myself and just my family as far as feeding ourselves. And I think humans got to realize that the consumer has to realize some of the toxicities that are actually utilized in the industry, and whether it's a greenhouse industry or the farming industry. So
you brought up a great point that it's animal approved too. I mean, that is huge because with this is used in agriculture and cows and chickens and goats and just that one gentleman we talked to, he hasn't taken his goats to the vet since he's been using GrowersMineral because it's been such a pure product for them to eat.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people use as a benchmark. You know, when they talk about, you know, feeding it to their animals, whether it's their dairy cows or their beef cows or pigs or really any animal can benefit. I even have a grower's guy that sells it to a beekeeper.
Oh, wow.
And he puts it in the water source, and he sees the production increase from his bees, or at least he thinks he sees it. So, again, that is really critical. Because eventually we do consume these animals.
And it's great because in the other magazines and everything, the other fertilizers on the market, they will never come close to talking about this.
That's exactly right. And
that's why
goes back to our raw materials and why it's so critical to have medical grade raw materials in there.
And that's enormous because everyone's thinking about health now. Yeah. And GrowersMineral is at the high point right now. We just got to let people know about it.
Yeah, and I was thinking the landscaping industry. I think that's a natural fit for growers because when I was at my house in Cincinnati, the whole neighborhood would get all their lawns sprayed. You know, they'd come out and spray and notice the guy that was spraying it had a apparatus on his face to protect himself from whatever he's spraying. And then right after he got done spraying, he puts little stickers around or little tags in the yard that says, don't let your children or animal on this yard for 28 or 48 hours. And I always thought that was interesting so they know they're putting toxicities on there. And my biggest question is, where does it go after 24 hours?
Exactly. So. It run off in the creek or in the sewer system. But again, with that point, growers can also be successfully used on wineries, vineyards, and golf courses. You brought up golf courses, landscapers. I have test plots on all this stuff right now, and with no one has had a bat in an eye that it hasn't worked yet. We're just fine-tuning it right now.
Right. So, because it is new to them.
It is new to them.
It is definitely new to them, and we've got to learn how to apply it. And that,
correct.
And I think that's what you brought to the table for us. So we're excited to have you here and want to continue this. And so we'll look forward to.
And I'm here for anyone that wants to call. I may not return the call right away, but I will get back to you. And again, I have 40-some years of being a head grower, and I've grown many different varieties of plants, and Growers is an incredible product. And to maximize your profits, I believe it's a great test to use.
Well, Kevin, we're glad you're part of the team and the family here at Growers. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
This podcast has been brought to you by GrowersMineral. Please visit GrowersMineral.com.